So we are just off after after an amazing 9 days festival at Nepathya here in Murikulam, where we saw the new production of two plays. One is the Matavilasam, and the other is the Ataviyankam of the Pratima Nataka, ascribed to Bhasa. And this was a very, every time watching Nepathya and watching Kutiyattam is a very special experience, but this time, with these two plays, there were many unusual and innovative and new things that we haven't experienced before, and maybe Nepathya hasn't experienced before.
So let's explain that both of these plays appeared actually disappeared to a large extent from the repertoire. That is, Matavilasam was performed in the Kutiyattam mode, but in a very truncated fashion. Only the first two verses of the text, this is the text of Mahendra Varman from the 7th century, only the first two verses of the text and a small piece of prose were actually performed on the Kutiyattam stage. And the Matavilasam performances were the shortest of all possible Kutiyattam plays. The text itself, with its amazing and convoluted story and its farcical nature, was not performed, perhaps at any point over the last 1,000 years or so. And what Margi Madhuchakya has done is to create an Arthaprakaram, an actor's manual, which includes the plot of the play and the text of the play for the first time. And it's a very beautiful and amazing play, as we'll tell you in a moment. Similarly, with the Pratima Nataka, that was once an integral part of the Kutiyattam repertoire, but for reasons that we don't understand, it fell out of performance something like 200 to 300 years ago. The last attested performance is from sometime in the 18th century. So here again, Nepathya has acted to revitalize or to reinvent or to recreate the performance tradition of this play, which is a very unusual play. Actually, I think one of the most beautiful in the entire library of Sanskrit drama.
So there is a lot of innovation going on here, in the sense with the Matavilasam that the performance is traditionally geared for anything between 1 and 3 nights, and now we have the whole of the play, the whole of the story, the farcical story of the Kapalika who lost his Kapala, and basically that is his begging bowl, and thereby also lost his defining feature, his identity. And he goes around and he meets a Buddhist monk who has his own begging bowl, a different begging bowl, different color, different shape, but it doesn't matter to the Kapalika, and he insists that it's his. And a very witty and funny conversation takes place between the two of them, in which the Kapalika is a drunkard and the Buddhist monk is each test and tease the tenets of the other, until a third ascetic shows on stage and is asked to judge who's between the two of them. He fails to do that, and finally a madman appears on the scene, and he actually has the begging bowl, the Kapala of the Kapalika, which he received from a dog, and lots of very amusing and exciting things happen on stage. And one of the things that happened on stage is that all of the aesthetic values of these ascetics are portrayed as rather silly, and the main value that the show seems that the text and the Nepathya show seems to feature is the value of pleasure. In fact, the Buddhist monk says that the Buddha really wanted the monks to have a good time, and he only forgot two things to mention in his preachings. One is that the monks should have the pleasure of meeting women, and the other that they should have, what is it, like wine, yeah. But actually, probably the Buddha must have said that too, because he was so kind and sympathetic to the monks, and it's just the older monks who are jealous of the young monks who can have fun and enjoy themselves who have erased this from the text. But if we look hard enough, says the Buddhist monk, we will find a Buddha Vachana that authorizes drink and women.
So, as Yigal has just said, this play, it's meant to be funny, and it is funny, and also kind of sharp and surprising. This play seems to be proclaiming a kind of ethos of joyfulness in life, a kind of joie de vivre. And that's a big surprise. If you just read the Sanskrit text of the play, you don't fully understand it. There's a gap between the Sanskrit play and its live performance, where the, I think, inner logic of it then comes into clear view. And in that sense, it's a very moving performance. And especially the appearance of this kind of pseudo madman, lunatic. I say pseudo because, like some madmen, he speaks the truth, or some version of the truth. And his appearance on stage changes the whole atmosphere in the play, so that it has a kind of astonishing, happy ending, an unusual feature in Kutiyattam.
Also, there's something interesting that and that's already in the old Ataprakarams and Kramadipikas, is that the play has in its prelude, the way it's performed, not the text itself, but the way it's performed in Kutiyattam, a large selection of verses from Kalidasa's Kumarasambhava, 30-something verses. But the verses are primarily from the first half of the Kumarasambhava, where God Kama, the god of love, defeats Shiva, and from that, basically bypassing all of Parvati's ascetic performance, create the couple of Shiva and Parvati. So again, you see this kind of emphasis on pleasure and love at the expense of really what Kalidasa imagined in his Kumarasambhava.
That's the great experience one has when one sees a play like this in live performance. And that's the gift that we received this year, the first of the two great gifts, because the second one is the Pratimanadaka, Act 4. Let's say a few words about Pratimanadaka. So this is a Ramayana play. I don't think it's connected to Bhasa. I think it was produced by Chakyars or people close to them, perhaps 1,000 years ago or so. But it's a Ramayana play. And the fourth act shows us Bharata, who has been recalled to Ayodhya. He has only just upon arrival discovered that his father, Dasharatha, is dead, and that he is meant to be crowned king because of his father's death. I mean, he doesn't want to be
and because
king.
Of his mother's wish, yeah.
Yeah, his mother Kaikeyi has tried to manipulate this situation so that the kingdom would be his, but he doesn't want it. And so he rushes off to the forest to find Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita in the great hopes that he can persuade Rama to go back on his promise, or his father's promise, and to take the kingdom. So it's a very emotional act. We see the brothers, these three brothers, reuniting. and there's their shared grief over the death of the father, and then Bharata says to Rama that he wants to stay in the forest with him, and somebody else will rule the kingdom. Or better still, Rama himself might come back to Ayodhya.
Or just the mere mention of Rama's name will
Yeah.
ensure that the kingdom will be safe and sound until the return from the forest. But so in a sense, not a lot happens in this act, right? Bharata comes to the forest and deliberates how to announce himself and announces himself, and Rama and his wife Sita and his brother Lakshmana sit in the leaf hut and they hear this announcement and they deliberate who to send out to meet Bharata, and only at the last night Rama and Bharata actually meet and they talk some, and then Bharata returns to the forest. So on the face of it, it's not a very action dominated act, and it's a lot of talking and a lot of waiting, but what we saw on stage was amazingly emotional, and especially that last night. Maybe you want to say about
So, yeah.
about
If we concentrate on the last night, there were 3 nights. If we focus
actually
on
it's 6 nights that were crammed
that's
into
right.
3 long nights.
That's true. There are 2 things that I think have to be said. So actually, Rama threatens Bharata that he will curse him if Bharata does not go back and rule Ayodhya, in order to keep the promise of the father's demand.
He also keeps referring to Bharata as Kaikeyi's son, or he who has Kaikeyi as a mother, which at one point Bharata says, "You're just adding salt to my wounds."
That's right. But what happens in that final moment, final moment in their discussion, is that Bharata suddenly realizes he's being threatened with that curse, but I think he realizes that he has to go back. He has to go back to Ayodhya against his own will and protect the kingdom until, in Rama's name, with Rama's sandals on the throne.
Well, wait.
Yeah, we'll get to it in just a second.
Yeah. So he knows he has to get back for 14 long years and do on his own for these.
But I think watching the play, that in a way the fundamental thrust of it has to do with the transformation of Bharata himself in himself. He comes in at the beginning in a kind of pitiful state. He's very tortured by what has happened, by what his mother has made for him, and he feels guilty, horribly guilty, and he wants to be announced to Rama as a kind of guilty person. But by the end of the play, he's actually become his own person, a real person. And at the critical moment when he has to decide what to do, he decides the right thing to do. That is, he knows he has to go back. It's in my sense of the play, it's a moment of a kind of sudden maturation of Bharata and the way he turns into the person he was meant to be. But there's another element.
But wait, maybe I can offer a slightly different interpretation.
Okay.
This play as a whole, and this act specifically, is about how Rama and Bharata are mirror images of one another. In fact, this is stated explicitly when Lakshmana comes out and he says, "Oh, this is like an image stuck into a mirror of Rama standing in front of me." So, in a way, you could say that when Bharata goes back, we have to explain that in this play, Rama and Bharata have not met before. They were separated at a very young age, so they don't really know one another. A lot of the action revolves around the mutual recognition of who's who by the two of them and by Sita and Lakshmana. So when Bharata goes back, it's as if a part of Rama or an image of Rama with an actual part of Rama, actually sandals, goes back into the forest. So I'm not saying this contradicts your interpretation, but maybe Bharata matures into a form of Rama.
There's that decisive moment. It happens very quickly, but he's somehow able to make this decision under tremendous pressure. And I think as he leaves, he's kind of a different person than he was when he came. But there's this element of the sandals, because we have to say that the, I don't know, maybe climax of this whole third night was when the sandals, these are wooden sandals, and Bharata is going to take them back and put them on the throne.
To set it up, Bharata says he would return, but on two conditions, two samayas, two agreements that he would have with Rama. One is that after 14 years, Rama would come back and resume his role as a king, take it again, sit on the throne, and Rama says okay. But the second request is that Bharata will take Rama's sandals with him, and these sandals will be consecrated, and they will actually sit on the throne. They will be the king of Ayodhya, and Bharata will just take his orders from the sandals.
So we know from the very ancient manuals, the Kramadipika, that when this happens, and the sandals are waiting to be taken back with Bharata, there is what's called the Kalasham, that is to say, a ritual, a puja, offered to the sandals as a part or piece of Rama himself. And what we saw on stage, following that ancient recommendation of the Kramadipika, is a Tantri priest, professional priest, who has performed the Kalasham probably hundreds of times in temples, but who was also once a Kathakali actor, and his father a famous Kathakali actor. So we had a priest on stage happily performing this ritual.
No stranger to the art of performance.
No stranger to it, and it was incredibly beautiful. You have to imagine the stage lined with small oil lamps, and then all the apparatus of the ritual as it takes place, and then everybody, all of the characters of this play come out onto the stage joining this ritual. It's a kind of moment of revelation.
It was an amazing moment.
Yeah.
It was an amazing moment. You have to imagine this. The Kutiyattam stage, for the most part, is very roomy in the sense that usually one actor or actress stand on stage, behind them the three drummers on their right, one or two people playing the cymbal. Suddenly there were 5 actors and actresses on stage, 5 characters on stage, the 3 drummers, the cymbal player, the 2 drummers from the temple, the priest, his 2 helpers, and another cymbal player, and then all these materials pouring, and then drumming, but in a different rhythm, the rhythm of the temple, and it was a half an hour of just hypnotic half an hour of this performance. I've never seen anything like that, and I have seen quite a few hours of Kutiyattam, and I think it was a rare and extremely moving and amazing half an hour.
So as you can see, these 2 plays gave us something extraordinary. We're enormously grateful to Nepathya, to Madhu and Indu and Srihari and all of the other actors and the incredibly gifted drummers for having presented us with a gift that is unlike any gift we've ever seen before.
And we can only wait for the next year and the next performance.
Yeah.